They called her Barren. A woman whose womb had failed her, whose name was whispered in pity across the land. But destiny had another name for her, Mother. On a stormy night, beneath the palace walls, her tears met the cry of a newborn, a child left for dead. She picked her up, not knowing she was lifting the future of an entire kingdom. For from the hands of a broken woman, rose the hand that would one day wear the crown. You're watching Nightfall Tales by Wura, where stories breathe, hearts remember, and destiny walks among men. The rain came without warning. Dark clouds rolled over the kingdom of Erumu, a land of gold crowns and cold hearts. Inside the high white palace walls, laughter echoed from the banquet hall. The king's twin sons were celebrating their victory at the royal games. Music filled the air, but beyond the gates, the storm was only beginning. A woman in her late 30s, Adesewa, knelt beside the palace wall, her hands trembling as she clutched an umbrella that barely shielded her from the downpour. Her eyes were red, not from the rain, but from the tears she'd cried every night for the past 11 years. 11 years of marriage. 11 years of silence in her womb. 11 years of being called the barren wife. Her husband, Prince Damalair, the king's younger brother, had once adored her. But now he rarely looked her way. The palace had grown cold to her, the queen mother whispered behind her back, the servants pitied her, and the royal elders called her a waste of royal blood. That night, as thunder rumbled, Adesewa pressed her hands to her chest and whispered to the heavens. If you will not give me a child, at least give me a reason to keep breathing. Then, she heard it. A faint cry. She froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the thunder. It was a baby's cry, weak, distant, but real. Her heart pounded as she followed the sound around the side of the palace wall, to a narrow path the servants rarely used. There, lying in a soaked shawl beneath an old baobab tree, was a newborn girl, no more than a few hours old, her skin glowing faintly beneath the rain. Adesewa gasped and knelt, her heart breaking open. The child's lips were pale, her cry fading. She looked around, no one was there. Who would abandon a baby at the palace gates? And then, as lightning flashed across the sky, Adesewa saw something strange, a royal anklet around the baby's tiny foot. The same design worn only by those of royal blood. Her hands trembled. A royal child? Left to die? Without another thought, she wrapped the baby in her shawl and held her close. The warmth of that little body against her chest melted something inside her. You are mine now, she whispered. Even if the gods never gave you to me, I will be your mother. That night, Adesewa carried the baby into her home through the servants' path. She told no one, not even her husband. She named the child Amira, meaning princess. And from that night onward, her barren days were over. But what she didn't know was this. That baby she found in the rain was never meant to live an ordinary life. She was born to be queen. And when destiny finally called her throne, blood would answer. The first rays of morning sunlight fell across the kingdom of Erumu, bouncing off the gold-plated palace roofs and spilling across the royal courtyard like liquid fire. Servants scurried about preparing for the morning rituals, but far from the royal bustle, inside the quiet quarters of Prince Damalair, a new rhythm of life had begun. Little Amira, now 6 months old, giggled softly as Adesewa rocked her in her arms. The baby's laughter filled the once silent room, a melody so pure that even the air seemed to dance with joy. For the first time in years, Adesewa smiled with her whole face. You are my answered prayer, she whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. They said I would never be a mother, but here you are, my little miracle. No one knew about Amira except Martha, Adesewa's loyal maid, an older woman who had served her since the day she married into the royal family. Martha had helped her hide the baby's existence, sneaking in food, milk, and blankets under the cover of night. But secrets have short legs in a palace where walls have ears. Weeks turned into months, and the palace began to stir with rumors. A cook swore she'd heard a baby cry near Prince Damalair's quarters. A guard claimed he saw Adesewa carrying something wrapped in white at midnight. By the time gossip reached the Queen Mother's ears, the whispers had turned venomous. So, she's stolen a child to hide her shame, the Queen Mother hissed, slamming her golden fan shut. If this is true, she will be stripped of her title. I will not have a liar in this royal house. But before the Queen Mother could act, fate intervened. One evening, Prince Damolaire returned home earlier than expected. He had been drinking with his elder brother, King Aladapo, who had recently fallen ill. His mind was foggy, his heart heavy. When he opened the door to Adesewa's chamber, he froze. There, before him, was Adesewa sitting on the floor, cradling a sleeping baby. His voice thundered. "What is the meaning of this, Adesewa? Whose child is that?" Adesewa's heart stopped. She rose slowly, trembling, and tried to speak. "Please, Damolaire, listen to me. I found her." "Found her?" he barked, stepping closer. "Where? At the market? Or in your imagination? Are you trying to embarrass this family even more?" Tears filled her eyes. She tried to explain about the storm, the abandoned baby, the royal anklet, but her words only enraged him further. "Do you think anyone will believe this foolish tale? You've lost your mind, Adesewa." The baby stirred and began to cry. Damolaire turned away in disgust. "Get rid of it. Before my mother finds out." He left without another word. That night, Adesewa locked her door and wept silently beside Amira's cradle. "Even if the world rejects you," she whispered, "I will not. I swear it on my life." But destiny is never quiet for long. The next morning, as Adesewa carried Amira through the palace garden, something strange happened. The royal priestess, Ialorisha Mornike, appeared suddenly from behind the sacred hibiscus trees. Her white robe glowed faintly under the sun, her beaded crown shimmering with ancient power. "My princess," she said softly, though her eyes seemed fixed on the baby. "Who is this child you carry?" Adesewa's lips trembled. She tried to hide the baby's face, but the priestess gently touched her hand. "Do not fear. The gods have shown me her face before." Adesewa's eyes widened. You've seen her?" "Yes," the priestess whispered. "In a dream on the night of the great storm. I saw a child born under thunder, with the mark of kings upon her foot. She was crying by the palace wall, and her destiny was covered in blood and gold." Adesewa gasped and looked down at Amira's tiny ankle, at the royal anklet still hidden beneath her wrappings. "What does it mean?" The priestess smiled faintly. "It means she is not yours, Adesewa. But she was given to you for a reason. Protect her, even if it costs you everything." Before Adesewa could ask more, the priestess turned and disappeared among the trees, her footsteps silent, her presence fading like mist. That night, Adesewa couldn't sleep. Her heart raced as she watched the baby breathe. Blood and gold. Protect her, even if it costs you everything. She didn't understand the prophecy, but she knew one thing: her life would never be the same again. Far away, in the king's private chamber, a different storm was brewing. King Aladapo's health was worsening. The royal doctors whispered of poison. And in the shadows of the palace, unseen hands were already plotting who would inherit the throne and who must die before that day came. The palace of Erumu had always gleamed: white marble floors, gold-rimmed walls, and guards dressed in the color of victory. But lately, the air within those royal walls had changed. The smell of herbs and incense filled the corridors, and the once lively laughter of courtiers had turned to whispers. The King Aladapo III, ruler of Erumu, had fallen gravely ill. At first, they said it was just fever. Then, when the fever refused to break, the royal physician whispered another word: poison. No one dared speak it aloud, but fear spread like smoke through the palace. In his chamber, King Aladapo lay weakly upon his bed, sweat dripping from his temples. The Queen Mother sat beside him, fanning him slowly, her eyes sharp despite her trembling lips. "Who would dare harm my son?" she muttered, her gaze darting toward the door. "In this palace? Under my roof?" But even she knew the answer: power. The throne of Erumu had always been a crown that burned whoever wore it. The king had no male heir. Only one daughter, Princess Tolani, 19, beautiful but fiery. The elders had never wanted a woman to rule. That left only one possible successor: the king's younger brother, Prince Damolaire, Adesewa's husband. And the Queen Mother would stop at nothing to secure the throne for her surviving bloodline. That night, while the palace mourned in silence, Damolaire sat alone in his study, pouring himself another glass of palm wine. His thoughts were clouded with ambition and fear. If his brother died, he would be king. But there was one problem: the people loved Oladapo. And even in sickness, the king was still revered as the heart of Erumu. Damolaire clenched his jaw. "If he dies now, they'll think I killed him," he muttered. "But if I wait too long, I'll lose my chance." From the shadows, a voice spoke. "You've already lost more than you know." He turned sharply. Standing at the doorway was Adesewa, her face pale under the lantern's glow. "What are you talking about?" he snapped. She stepped closer, holding a folded piece of cloth in her hand, Amira's blanket. "The king's child didn't die, Damolaire." He froze. "What did you say?" Her voice shook. "I think the baby I found that night, she belongs to the king." He slammed his cup down, the liquid spilling across the table. "That's madness. The king's daughter is alive, she's grown." "What nonsense is this?" Adesewa's eyes filled with tears. "No, not Princess Talani. There was another baby, born that same night. I overheard the midwives whispering before dawn. The queen gave birth to twins. But one was declared dead before sunrise. No one ever saw the child's body." Damolaire stared at her, speechless. "You're saying—" "I'm saying Amira might be that child," Adesewa whispered. "The royal anklet she wore wasn't a coincidence." Damelaire's chest tightened. His mind raced. If this was true, if the king had another heir, a secret daughter, it could destroy everything. His path to the throne would be gone. He looked at his wife with something dark in his eyes. "You must never speak of this again." "But Damolaire—" "Never," he barked, slamming his fist on the table. "If anyone hears this, you'll bring ruin to us both." Adesewa took a step back, clutching the blanket to her chest. "She deserves to know who she is," she said softly. "She's just a child, Damolaire. She's innocent." "No child is innocent when a crown is at stake," he growled, turning away. 2 nights later, the king died. The kingdom wept. Bells tolled across Erumu as thousands filled the palace courtyard to mourn their beloved ruler. Prince Damolaire stood beside the Queen Mother, his face carved with false grief. He placed his hand on his heart as the priestess declared, "Oladapo III has joined the ancestors. Let the council prepare to crown the next king of Erumu." But in a quiet corner of the courtyard, Adesewa held Amira tightly, tears streaming down her face. She could feel it, the child trembling against her chest, as though her tiny soul knew what had just been lost. The priestess, Ialorisha Mornike, stood not far from them, her eyes closed in silent prayer. When she opened them again, she looked straight at Adesewa and said softly, "The serpent has shed its skin, but the crown will find its true head, when the blood moon rises." Adesewa didn't understand, not yet. But deep within her, she felt the first shadow of fear. Because she knew the palace would never rest. And sooner or later, someone would discover the secret of the baby she carried, the child born beneath thunder, the one destined to sit on the throne. The morning bells of Erumu echoed for 7 days. The air in the kingdom was heavy with grief, or what seemed like grief. Behind the palace curtains, plans were already being made. The royal council of elders gathered daily in the marble chamber, their voices low and careful. The throne was empty, and everyone knew what that meant: power was up for grabs. The Queen Mother wanted Prince Damolaire crowned immediately. But the High Priestess, Ialorisha Mornike, requested a sacred delay. "The ancestors demand we wait until the blood moon," she said firmly. "Only then shall the rightful ruler be revealed." The Queen Mother's eyes narrowed behind her veil. "And what foolishness is this, Mornike? You dare delay the throne in a time of crisis?" "It is not I who delays, Your Majesty," Mornike replied calmly. "It is the gods who speak." The chamber fell silent. None of the elders dared challenge her. The priestess of Erumu was not a woman to cross. She carried the authority of both spirit and tradition, and her prophecies had never failed. That night, the moon turned red. It hung above the palace like a burning wound in the sky, deep crimson, glowing, almost alive. The entire kingdom gathered in silence to watch. Drums stopped. Songs ceased. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And in her chamber, Adesewa felt her blood turn cold. She had been restless all day. Amira, now a year old, wouldn't stop crying. No matter how much she rocked or sang, the child screamed as if the night itself terrified her. Then, just as the blood-red light fell across the floor, the baby went quiet. Utterly quiet. Adesewa looked down and gasped. A faint golden shimmer danced across Amira's skin, like sunlight trapped beneath her flesh. Her eyes opened, not brown, but glowing faintly amber. Adesewa stumbled backward, her breath caught in her throat. "Amira," she whispered, trembling. "What are you?" At that moment, the door burst open. Martha, her maid, rushed in. "My lady! Did you hear the drums? The Queen Mother has summoned the priestess. The king's body has begun to move." Adesewa's eyes widened in horror. "What did you say?" "The king, my lady." His eyes opened for a moment. "The guards swear he spoke." Adesewa's heart pounded. She clutched Amira tightly and ran to the window. From her chamber she could see the palace courtyard, torches blazing, guards shouting, and in the middle of it all, the priestess raising her staff toward the blood-red moon. "The king's spirit speaks." Monarch cried aloud. "The bloodline is not broken. The true heir lives, and she is among us." The crowd gasped. Damolaire froze where he stood. The Queen Mother's voice cracked like thunder. "Silence that witch before she curses this house." But the priestess lifted her staff higher, unshaken. "The storm-born child still breathes. The gods have hidden her, but the throne remembers its blood." Adesewa felt her knees weaken. Storm-born child. She looked down at Amira, whose golden glow was fading, her tiny fingers curled around Adesewa's necklace. There was no doubt now. The priestess had seen the truth. At dawn, chaos reigned inside the palace. The Queen Mother ordered the priestess confined to her temple chambers, accusing her of disturbing royal peace. Damolaire said nothing, his face expressionless, his mind spinning. He spent the night pacing, unable to sleep. When morning came, he went straight to Adesewa's quarters. She was sitting beside Amira's cradle, her face pale and weary. "You heard what the priestess said," she whispered before he could speak. "It's her, Damolaire. The gods have confirmed it." He didn't move. "Do you know what that means?" she continued. "Amira is the rightful heir to this kingdom. Not you. Not Tolani. Horror." Damolaire clenched his fists. He looked at the sleeping baby, her innocent face peaceful, unaware of the storm swirling around her existence. "Then she must never be found," he said coldly. "Not by them." Adesewa stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if they find her, they'll kill her. And they'll kill you too." His tone was flat, not out of compassion, but calculation. He turned away, his mind already plotting. The throne was within his grasp, but the existence of the storm-born child threatened everything. "Damolaire," Adesewa whispered, stepping closer. "Promise me you won't hurt her." He didn't answer. "Please," she begged. "If you ever loved me." "Love," he snapped. "Love doesn't rule kingdoms. Fear does." And with that, he walked out, slamming the door behind him. That night, Adesewa made her choice. She wrapped Amira in soft white cloth, kissed her tiny forehead, and whispered through tears. "Forgive me, my daughter. But I must protect you from the ones who should have loved you." She handed the child to Martha, who waited by the hidden servants' gate. "Take her far away," Adesewa said, her voice breaking. "Beyond the river, to the village of Okira. Find the old midwife there, tell her to raise the child as her own." Martha hesitated. "My lady, if they find out." "They must never find out," Adesewa said. "Tell no one where she came from. Change her name. Bury the truth, even from her. Tears filled Martha's eyes. And you? Adesewa smiled faintly, though her heart was shattering. I will stay here, and make them believe she never existed. As Martha disappeared into the darkness with the baby, Adesewa sank to her knees, sobbing silently. Overhead, the blood moon faded into pale dawn. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, a baby's cry rose with the morning wind, the cry of a forgotten princess. The village of Okira was nothing like Erumu. No gold gates, no guards, no royal walls, only red earth, singing crickets, and women who laughed while pounding in beneath mango trees. Life here moved to the rhythm of rain and market bells, not the sound of palace drums. On a misty morning, the old midwife Mama Kemi found a stranger waiting outside her hut. Martha, soaked from travel, clutching a bundle wrapped in white. Please, Martha whispered, her voice hoarse from the long journey. She has no mother, no father. The gods said to bring her here. Mama Kemi studied the child. The baby slept peacefully, her tiny fist gripping a silver bead that glittered even in the dull dawnlight. The old woman's eyes softened. The gods do not send what they will not protect, she murmured. Leave her with me. And so, the storm-born child began her second life. Years later. 14 years passed. Okira forgot the day she arrived. They knew her as Amira Kemi, the midwife's adopted granddaughter, clever, outspoken, with a strange habit of staring at the moon as if listening to it speak. Her beauty was unlike any in the village. Her skin gleamed like polished bronze, and her eyes carried a faint amber hue that unsettled elders and fascinated strangers. Some said she was touched by the spirits. Others whispered she was cursed. But to Mama Kemi, she was simply her own, the child she had raised, fed, and protected with quiet devotion. You must never remove this, Mama Kemi would always say, touching the tiny silver bead still tied around Amira's wrist. It keeps your destiny asleep until the right time. Amira would laugh and reply. Destiny can sleep all at once, Grandma. I'm not leaving this village. Yet fate was already stretching its hands toward her. The day of the accident. One blazing afternoon, a royal convoy passed through Okira, armored SUVs bearing the crest of Erumu. The villagers rushed to the roadside to see the spectacle, sleek cars, tinted windows, guards in dark suits. Amira, curious, slipped through the crowd. Dust swirled, and her eyes met those of a young man inside the first car. He looked about 20 strong, proud, wearing the unmistakable bearing of royalty. Prince Tade, son of Princess Tolani and heir apparent to the Erumu throne. Their gaze locked for an instant before the car rolled on. Something stirred inside her, a strange, unfamiliar pull, as though an invisible thread had just been tugged. That night, she dreamed of a palace she had never seen, wide halls lined with gold, a woman crying beside a throne, and a moon dripping blood across the sky. When she awoke, the bead on her wrist had snapped. The next morning, Mama Kemi received a sealed letter delivered by an exhausted courier from Erumu. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The words were few but heavy. Martha is dead. The Queen Mother knows. Hide the girl. They are coming. Adesewa. Mama Kemi's heart pounded. She looked at Amira, innocent, laughing, feeding chickens outside the hut, and her soul broke. Child, she said softly, you must leave this place. Amira frowned. Leave? Why? Because your life depends on it. But before she could explain, they heard the rumble of engines again, not one, but many. Black vehicles surrounded the village square. Men in uniform stepped out, their movements sharp, deliberate, official. The lead officer unfolded a parchment bearing the royal seal. By order of the Queen Mother of Erumu, we search for a girl of uncommon beauty and amber eyes. She is wanted for questioning. The villagers exchanged fearful glances. Mama Kemi's heart froze. Grandma, Amira whispered, they're talking about me. Inside. Mama Kemi hissed, pushing her into the back hut. But it was too late. One of the soldiers had already seen her, the glow of her skin beneath the sun, the flash of amber in her gaze. There, he shouted. That's her. Chaos erupted. Villagers screamed as soldiers stormed forward. Mama Kemi grabbed a pouch of ashes from her shelf and flung it into the air, chanting words older than the kingdom itself. A sudden gust of wind swept through the square, blinding the soldiers. She pulled Amira toward the forest path behind the hut. "Run, child. Don't stop until you reach the river." "Grandma, I can't leave you." "Go," she cried, tears streaking her face. "The gods will guide you." Amira ran, branches whipping at her skin, her breath sharp and ragged. Behind her, she heard shouts, gunfire, and then silence. When she reached the riverbank, she turned back. The sky above Okira was black with smoke. She fell to her knees and screamed, a sound that split the wind and made the river ripple as if answering her grief. That night, the moon rose full and white. And somewhere far away, in the royal palace of Erumu, Adesewa woke from a nightmare, her heart pounding, her spirit sensing the cry of the child she once called her own. Back in the palace. The queen mother sat in her chamber, her fingers covered in gold rings, her eyes cold. "You're sure she escaped?" she asked her guard. "Yes, your majesty. The girl fled before we could capture her. The old midwife is dead." The queen mother smiled faintly. "Good. Then she'll run straight into our hands. The gods can play their little games, but destiny always returns to the palace." And with that, she turned toward the golden portrait of the late king and whispered, "Your blood will serve my house again, Oladapo. One way or another."